When they started firing, when we started running away and just kind of going downhill on horseback, once they ran out of the blanks, then the live ammo started firing, and I was seeing it against the dark night.
Davoud fled from Iran to Greece to not be taken into custody. I wondered how a vulnerable person like me would handle this. Describing to me how it felt to be shot at enlightened me. But let's start at the beginning. I met Davoud in Athens, where I stayed for 3 months, and we became friends.
What was your first impression of me, you remember?
My first impression about you that day was someone who had the light in their eyes. It was this, and it's still true to this day. It still hasn't gone away. And I think it will persist for a long time.
Let's hope so.
And this child's eye, when you're curious about everything and you're so receptive and perceptive about things, and that really, I saw that in you.
When you think back to your life, was there a moment when you had this innocence?
I still have that innocence. It's just, I've grown so much more beyond it. For example, a light, let's say, in a room shines as bright. But if you increase the size of the room around that light, suddenly the light looks smaller, but it's truly the same light. Nothing has changed about the light itself. It's just the room has increased in its capacity. And that's how I feel about myself.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah.
So that persona of yours, not persona, that characteristic, that inner child of yours will still be there. And I like to think that it's still inside of me. It's still inside of me every sunset. Every time I go outside on the hill and watch the view, it's still in there. However, the capacity has increased so much more. And for me, throughout my journey and my travel, quite contradictory to what people might think, that child is most active during the times of adversity and during the hardships and at that climax of pain.
Then it's
most present.
Okay, yeah.
It is. And I looking back at crossing the border between Turkey and Iran, when we were kind of ambushed from a distance. The journey that night, it was incredibly cold. I could see frosting on my lips and through the moisture of my breath. It was incredibly cold, something around negative 15 to 20 degrees. And the whole mountain was covered by snow, and it was kind of iced out, the snow on top. It was kind of an old snow. It was kind of frozen over. And it was a clear, beautiful night with a lot of stars, and the moon was shining very bright. And it looked like the Wild West, the deserts, those Hollywood movies, those Western movies that you see. Instead of a plain desert, it was mountain, up and down valleys and hills and peaks. Instead of sand, it was ice. You could still see and make out like dead horses' skeletons and dead animal skeletons on the mountain. And instead of hot, it was incredibly cold. So it was the polar opposite of a Western movie, but it still had the same feel and spirit of a Western. And we missed the ambush, basically, of the Iranian patrol, Iranian guards. We were about a few hills apart, roughly. And then they started firing at us, and we were on horses. And we started going down the hill towards Turkey, and they were kind of to the south of us. They started firing. They ran out of their warning shots, which are blanks. Each soldier has about 3 or 4 of them, up to 5. But then after that, they are live ammo. They're not blanks, they're live ammo. And when they started firing, when we started running away and just kind of going downhill on horseback, once they ran out of the blanks, then the live ammo started firing, and I was seeing it against the dark night.
You saw the ammo flying through the sky?
The bullet going down, and that was so beautiful to me.
Okay.
It was almost bringing tears to my eyes. It was beautiful amongst that horror and terror. The child was there and had a look of awe, gave me that look of awe, and that inspiring moment. Wow, this is beautiful. How can a bullet look so beautiful, flying through blazing through down into the valley, and it was magical. Mm-hmm. That child was present there. Throughout those adversities, for example, when I was homeless, the child was there. The experience was so bold and bright. Going through all of those challenges, the child made it so much easier. And I think this is what's special about someone like you or me, is that child makes it so much easier to go through adventure. It changes your perspective on challenge and pain and suffering so much more. It makes it joyful. People might think it's masochist, but it's really not. It's that child that wants to learn. And it's quite beautiful, I'd say, and I think you have a lot of that on your way. And going through your own version of The Lord of the Rings, I personally am curious to see how it evolves and changes you.
You perceived it as a child. Did it still scar you?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No. I look back at it with a smile. When you look at it as a child, it's always beautiful. Yeah. It's only when you have to be a grown-up about it is it that becomes kind of taxing on you. If you only have yourself to worry about, then you're fine. But if I was with, for example, if God forbid my little sister was in that situation, I'd go nuts. Yeah, I'd be worried dead about it, because it's not just me at this moment. I have to fill in that role. I need to be responsible for other people.
Who were you with in that moment?
No, just myself. I mean, there were other people, but no one that I truly cared about. For example, the reason my parents' divorce was more of a challenging experience is because I had to be a grown-up about it, even though I was not a grown-up. Because there was also my little sister that was forcing me to consider things a lot more. If it was just me, I wouldn't really mind that much. Even though it was more granular and over the years, it still was not as pleasant being chased down and shot at with live ammo.
So your mother and sister live now in Sweden?
Yeah.
And they left when you were?
I think at the time I was still 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then you lived with your father when you were 17 for a while?
Yeah. And then afterwards I had to leave. And so I came here right when I was 18, and Greece was and this whole journey was kind of like my 18th birthday gift. Here you go. You're an adult, perfect. Go to this country without papers or knowing anybody and try to make it. And it was quite a beautiful experience, I think. Best thing I could have asked for.
Why did you have to leave?
Yes, issues with the government.
Okay.
Troubles over the years, basically. Catching up, and human rights, and a right to an attorney and things like this kind of go out the door when you're dealing with the secret agents in Iran.
You were exposed to them because you're Kurdish? Or?
Yes, I had and also because I was in arts. I was a singer back then. a professional one from a young age, and I had a band and we were performing songs, and some of the songs were Kurdish nationalistic and they weren't sitting well with the government. So over the years it was kind of building up, and then finally it got to a point where they fired me from high school. I was blacklisted, couldn't do anything with the government, and I was kind of banned from TV and media in general, because the media is controlled by the government there, directly from the supreme leader, essentially. And so for a while, I was just living life on my own, like just nothing to do with school or anything official, or just doing underground gigs and performances and get-togethers, playing keyboard, conducting ceremonies and stuff like this. And it essentially got to a point where all was needed was just one more issue with the government, and then that'll be the final straw. Mm-hmm. Then they could like take me in and seal my fate with something, mm-hmm. without any due process. The due process that is described there is kind of like, you go there, you have an issue with the government, they give you an attorney, everything is done in less than a day, judge decides, and then you're in the hole for God knows how long if you don't get a death sentence. Mm-hmm. And they're also very happy about that. They're very liberal when it comes to giving out death sentences. They're very sparing for that. And it did get to that point, and then I had to leave before I was in their custody. Mm-hmm. So that's why I left the country.
How do you feel about having this fate where you kind of have nothing? It's not your fault at all, it's just...
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah?
Yeah, like, what can I do about it? At this point, maybe not much, but it's still fresh on me. I haven't forgotten about it. Of course, I would like to do something about it when I'm more capable.
About the journey you had through Turkey and into Turkey, and then further to Greece. You described it as your 18th birthday gift.
The whole thing, yes. It was quite a big gift to unpack. Getting to Greece, and then Greece was like truly the gift, because here, this country, and just make it, okay? Here's nothing, and then go make it. So it was kind of that situation. It was a big challenge. It's like you're thrown into the ocean and you know nothing about the ocean. You've never heard about the ocean. It's the first time you encounter water, let alone salty water, and now you have to swim in it, make it back to shore, do something, I don't know, build a boat while you're drowning. It was kind of like that. I had an artistic soul. I wasn't necessarily street clever, or, I mean, I was a villager boy, but even when I was in the village, I was more of the artistic soul, more of the sensitive kind, you know? More sensible, less rambunctious, and more on the human side than all the other boys, where they were out playing football and fighting and throwing stones at animals. And I was more of the type of sitting down and watching the sunset and looking at the clouds and playing with the grass, writing letters to my girlfriends. And
apart from the last thing, that reminds me a lot of me. Like and it's funny, we never talked about apart from that part.
No, I was 9 years old back then. Like it was very innocent and childish. Like, yeah.
But like, it's funny that I never picked up on that. It's
On the
I think
sensory
that's
part,
something that connected us.
Again,
without knowing, actually.
It's still in me, and so growing up, I was that artistic. I mean, I started singing and doing theater and acting in middle school. I was quite young, and it quite fit me. I really loved it. I really loved the art and working on art and performance art. And being that idealistic, philosophical, deep thinking, like creative, elitist. It's like sitting on the chair and with my glasses and just with this pretense of, this fancy soul. And then kind of being thrust into an unknown environment and having to make it.
Athens, you mentioned?
Yes, not just Athens, but like Athens whilst having nothing. Dealing with homelessness, dealing with safety issues, everything, whilst having no papers, and also worrying about getting caught by the cops, making sure not getting into a trouble because you can't go to the cops, remember? And so it was quite interesting. The amount of change I had to make and the amount of evolution I had to undergo was quite considerable, going from that to that. But again, it was never lost on me, and I never will lose it. No matter how much more brutal and clever I get in the streets, and how much more violent and aggressive I get because of the environment, that part of me will always be there. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just about me. Maybe I have the capacity and others truly don't. But I think that also is true about you. That you can't explore your wilderness without sacrificing much. You'll sacrifice things, but not that child.
What was it for you that gave you the motivation or hope here?
My aunts in Sweden, they really did want to get me out of here, but I really didn't want to. And the reason was I quite liked doing it on my own, because here nobody gave a damn. Not the government, not the people. I had a couple friends, that was it. And I was forced to make it on my own. And this showed me that whatever I do and whatever becomes of me is directly because of me. And directly a result of my own actions. If I go to Sweden, I'll be under the auspices of the government. I'll be under the control of the government, under the favor of the government, provided for by the government, and led by the government. And here was none of that. I had to do everything on my own. And when I applied for this scholarship to the American College of Greece and I got it, then I said, this is where I'm staying. Fast forward a few years later, I dropped out of that scholarship and now I'm doing something else. So you never know. You might think that you want to travel around the world for now. You never know. Next year it might change. Next year you might think, you might even find a bigger cause or something else. Because it's quite difficult to give up. If it's you or me, if you have that mindset towards the world and that eagerness and that passion, it's quite difficult to give up. You won't give up. You might pursue something bigger or interchange what you're already pursuing for something else, but you won't give up. You won't downgrade into just doing nothing or doing something less.
What is your bigger thing that you're pursuing?
The bigger thing for me, bigger than a double major in philosophy and politics, is the idea of financial liberty. To me, that is more important. to be liberated from anything fiscal, to get to the state of not worrying about money. Because I know until then, whatever I might do might be influenced by that. Meaning, if I follow philosophy, I might be influenced for money, by money. And if I truly want to pursue it my way, it better be untainted by anything like that, especially politics.
When you grew up in Iran, was that the same thing you were pursuing, or was there...
Financial liberty?
Yeah?
No.
What was it there?
I was all about, I cared nothing about money. Absolutely nothing. It was more about the art, the true big thoughts. I already didn't care about money, so I was in that place, but I hadn't yet realized how much restricting it is to not have that freedom, financial freedom. That's what's changed, basically, from then to now. And it's this idea is called progression bias. It's falsely thinking that what you want now is also going to be the thing that you want in the future. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And for me personally, to listen to what you've just said and comparing that to my position is moving, yeah.
How is your position?
I think my position is, I feel like I have this financial freedom and the freedom generally. I'm on this trip. I have like infinite freedom. Like if I think of how free you could be on this planet, I don't think there's, for me personally, a higher freedom than what I'm experiencing right now. And I feel so grateful for...
That's kind of how I was feeling when I was homeless, actually. That kind of freedom. I quite loved it, to be honest. But yours is a bit more well thought of, let's say. Yeah.
But that's interesting. So when you were homeless in Athens, you felt like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I still miss that feeling sometimes. To just get on a train, go on the mountain, sleep there, come back during the night, perform in the streets in the day.
I think the remarkable thing about this conversation is, if you look at the circumstances of our lives, they're super different.
Yeah.
And
yet here we are.
Yeah, here we are as friends and as people who have the same core. We have this childishness, we have an openness, we have an approach of exploring. I feel like we both, at least I, could look at you and find things to learn or to be inspired. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for having this sit down with me.
Thank you too.
I think, and I hope that this will be beneficial and enlightening to what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.